She is indeed the founder of the Marriage Forum, and Susan has created the Pro Dating program so that you can find the most successful lifelong partner that you desire. And with the additional skills, you will create a mutually exciting and stable lifelong relationship if that is what you truly desire. And her magical marriage training allows you to develop the deepest levels of intimacy and partnership too. You don't want to repeat the past, and if you don't want to remain single, Susan offers a complimentary 1-hour private telephone session so that everyone can transform their lives, their relationships, and their future. And Susan always is telling us if you do 100% of what works and 0% of what doesn't, you can actually have the life that you dream about. Oh, isn't that fantastic? Yes, the truth. And so tonight's show is indeed about the dance of romance. And what many women have learned, I myself as well, is that men respond to visuals most strongly. How a partner looks is really a big deal for them. And what most men still don't quite understand is that women respond most to their voice and to the words their partner speaks to them. So Susan is a special a communication expert, and tonight you'll learn about the languages of love and how to ask for what you really want and know if you have selected a partner who can and will provide and be able to love you and themselves with that passion and stability of a partnership that really can last. And how exciting would that be? Yes. So I have all kinds of questions for you, Susan, and I know you have many answers, and I'm excited to get going on this. Now, I know that since there are people looking for many different kinds of partners, and they're not all looking for the same person, some like blondes, some like brunettes, some like people who are tall, and some don't care exactly why do so many people say that they cannot find a long-term, intimate relationship that actually works for them?
You know, you may think that the reason you don't have the partner you want is because there's a scarcity of that kind of partner. You may believe that everybody's looking for the same partner you're looking for. They're not. The process of finding is where the breakdown is. So what we're going to talk about tonight is all the different skills and tools that I offer people so that you find what you're looking for when you're looking for it. And by the way, the same kind of skills work if you're looking for a job, if you're looking for a new home, if you're looking for anything, a school for your children. It is about using whole brain function, and that's what we're going to talk about. It's more fun if you're talking about it for romance and an intimate relationship, but finding is the key here. How to find what you want.
And with further details on this, if you look at the whole brain map, there are 4 basic kinds of partners that people are looking for.
Exactly. And Fred, if you could put that up on the screen, that would be great. And thank you. So you have to get a pretty good idea of who you are. 1, 2, or 3 of these quadrants are more like you. There are so few of us that are as much like each of these 4 that you don't even want to think that way. It's that you're 3. It's like for me, the blue is less active just because the other 3 are so active. So it isn't that there's anything wrong with us if we're not as active thinking these 4 different ways. That's the way the human race is at this point in time. Then what you want to figure out is what you're looking for in a partner. So which is it? There are people who are very, very intelligent, intellectual. There are people who make a lot of money. They are people who have a lot of power. That is the upper left brain. And ironically, that's the Donald Trump brain and the Hillary Clinton brain. Now, they're not identical. They've got very different emotional states, but that upper left part is very similar to both of them. And Martha Stewart and millions of other people who are very, very successful, very intelligent, and who make great things happen. The next, the lower left, is all about action and planning and safety. So monogamy fits in there. If monogamy is number one for you, if monogamy is the difference between you being happy in a relationship or you walking out, then just know that it is a function of the brain. Ironically, it's not that somebody is bad if they tell you that they're going to be monogamous and they're not. Believe me, I've had plenty of experiences with this. It's that their brain isn't wired properly for that. And so, in fact, you couldn't have expected it. You need to find out how your partner's brain is wired before you go expecting all sorts of promises to be kept, okay? Then the third is all about emotion and passion and lots of sex. So if that's what you're looking for, that's the part of the brain that you're looking for. I call that the Judy Garland brain and the Liza Minnelli brain, if you're the one generation or the other. And there are tons and tons of people, who are young and teenagers and in their 20s and 30s who fit into that category as well. And finally, the fourth, the upper right brain, the yellow quadrant, is hippies and visionaries and nature lovers and people who can go off and not even bother with civilization for a long time. They just don't need it. They're meditating, they're doing yoga, they're out in a kayak. That's the upper right brain person. So you've got to really get clear about what you're looking for, because until you do, you're not going to find it. It's that simple.
Thank you. That's very clear. So helpful for people to really understand. Now,
Even if they don't like what they're understanding.
there you go. Yeah, at least they're the facts.
That's right. Don't shoot me. I'm just the messenger.
Oh, now I know that the key to romance is certain habits that people do have. Some like whining and dining, some like cuddling up at home. What are the chances that someone can figure this out at the very beginning of a relationship so that they don't make mistakes?
I have a few clients who got so excited when they found the person that they were looking for, they thought, that they didn't need more sessions. And then, of course, each of these people comes back later for more sessions when they discover that there are some inherent problems in the relationship. So one of them thought that his partner was everything he dreamed of, and he forgot to check about finances. He forgot to look into the question of debt. He forgot to do that whole upper left blue quadrant dance, if you will. He did the other three dances, but not that one, and so has paid a high price in terms of dollars in order for their relationship to be working, because he's financing it. Then another client, a woman this time, who, same thing, she found what she thought was the perfect partner, got so excited, decided to go off having this wonderful life, and then it turns out that there are some really inherent problems there. Luckily, he's a very, very nice guy, and he's a very stable guy, and he's a monogamous guy, and he's a smart guy, and he's a successful guy, but he doesn't understand her career, and so he doesn't know how to be supportive of her career. He's a nice, supportive guy if you're a traditional person, living together day after day after day, but she's doing something much more interesting with her life. Her career is much more interesting. So then it becomes a problem, because monogamy is the opposite of hippiness, right? It's just the opposite. So here's a guy who's absolutely monogamous, but he expects her to be there all the time. And she's completely monogamous, but she's very creative, and her career calls for her to travel and do a lot of very different things. So I saw that coming. She didn't. So unless you've really studied this, unless you really have these skills, at least, you want me to figure it out with you and make sure that all of the moving parts are exactly the way you want them to be.
Nice. Yes. Do the homework and you can assist people with that. Now, I know that you've said it's easy to create a list of the attributes that you are looking for in a partner. And so how does that speed up the process of romance?
Well, imagine the amount of time you've put into trial and error. Imagine the hours and hours and hours, which 24 of them add up into a day, right? And 7 of those days add up into a week, and it goes downhill from there. So imagine all the time you've spent reading people's profiles without really understanding what they're telling you about themselves. If you don't understand the red flags in an online dating profile, and let's face it, in this day and age, if you're not using online dating, there's a high probability you're not going to find your partner. You cannot and will not find your partner in the old way of hanging out in different places and going to group events. Because the time wasted is crazy. And I'm just talking about the time wasted going online dating and not knowing what you're looking for and not having a checklist. So you've got to do that. And you've got to go to the right websites, and you've got to know certain basics, which I've covered with Gigi and other shows. But the bottom line is, you've got to know what you're looking for. And I recommend the clients put together a list of between 50 and 100 attributes. He is monogamous. He has an athletic toned body. When you want a minimum of something, you give the minimum amount. He is 5'9". You don't say 5'9" or taller. He is 5'9". He earns, and again, the minimum accepted amount. He earns $150,000 gross per year. He is ready to marry. He is ready to be a father. And on it goes until you're somewhere between 50 separate items and 100.
Very clear. So you have to just put in the exacts. That's so important.
Yeah, and you can't do or greater. I know a lot of people who've studied meditation believe that works. I have found again and again and again that it is your enemy. Don't do it. Or do it and good luck, but I've found it's a bad idea.
Well, that's very helpful. The more, the better off you're going to get what you want.
Yes, and that's where the misunderstanding comes in. Because if people say to me, oh, I'll never find him. Oh, I'll never find her. Well, you're already telling me that your emotional state is not where it needs to be for you to find that person. Because the emotional state you need to be in is, according to the emotional guidance scale of Abraham, is number 4. Positive expectation and belief. If you don't believe that you can find the partner you want, then obviously that's the problem, not the partner. You live on a planet with 8 billion people. So if you tell me what would make you happy as a person who has all these attributes, and I don't mean anything crazy. You're not saying that you want the Sultan of Brunei, but he should be single. Nobody's doing crazy stuff. So these attributes are very real, they're very practical, it's very doable. And then if you tell me, oh, I'll never find, then we know where the problem is. And we got to get your emotional state way, way up to positive expectation and belief. We can do it.
Very good. Boy, that's wonderful. Now, I know that you have said it's also easy to make a list of what's important to your partner once you have connected. How do you really use that list to create that deeper level of romance?
It's nice to find someone who is a perfect fit or almost a perfect fit to the 50 to 100 things that are important to you. And when I say almost a perfect fit, a lot of people would find out that, that number 43 never was really important to me. That number 76 was never a big deal. I don't know why I put it there. I realize now it really doesn't matter to me. And by the way, Susan, I found somebody who meets 98 of my 100 attribute list. Well, obviously, if those two things that are missing aren't important, that's great. I worked with a woman, and it turned out that when we figured out what needs of her boyfriends were met in her relationship with him, it was pretty much 50, maybe 49 out of 50. But when we flipped it and we did the other thing, so how many of your needs are met by this relationship with your boyfriend? Well, 80% were not. So obviously she's broken up with him because it was a relationship that hadn't worked in a long time. It wasn't going to work in the future. And it saves so much of your life to just be really practical. Instead, you've got to look at both lists. And I teach people how to have the conversation when they're alone with each other. So it's not punitive, it's not judgmental. It's like, wow, so what's really important to you is having somebody who's self-employed so that she would be able to be very flexible in her career. And you know that's something I've always wanted to do, and I've thought to myself that if I keep doing this for another 2 years, then I would be able to create my career in a different way. So how does that sound? Well, if he really is interested, if you meet enough of his needs, a couple of years isn't a big deal as long as you're working towards the goal. And that's why it's so important.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. You're on the same page and working together. Mm-hmm. That communication, huh?
That's right.
Now, with a big money kind of person, the blue quadrant, what do they find important?
Power, money, success. Why did Ivana marry Donald Trump? Why did his current wife marry Donald Trump? Why did Marla Maples marry Donald Trump? That's what was important to those three women. They wanted power, they wanted money. It's not a bad thing. I'm not judging them here. I'm just answering the question with information. That's what's important. And so that's what they did.
Very clear. And they'll agree, right?
Well, clearly, because, you've seen the future, you've seen the past.
And so what about the green quadrant, the people who are all about safety and planning?
Well, this is very interesting. I mean, there are women I've worked with who are very lower left brain, and they have husbands who make a lot of money intermittently. And they become very, very upset because what they want is their husband to make less money, but do it in a consistent way. So they don't feel frightened, because to them, somebody who closes a real estate deal or closes a kind of a business deal, that kind of a person to them looks like a gambler. Because they like somebody who goes to work Monday to Friday, brings home a paycheck, and does the same thing, repeats as needed. That's what they're looking for. Not somebody who makes deals and is a wheeler or dealer kind of thing.
I understand that. I have lived that. Now, I know that there are so many passionate and romantic people, and we know that they usually want a partner who, of course, is passionate and romantic too. What's up with that?
Well, the problem is one of you needs to learn how to bring yourself to peace before communicating, because that's the kind of couple that unfortunately ends up in domestic violence cases with restraining orders. So, makeup sex can only go so far. You really have to see the cost, the wear and tear of being in a relationship that's so volatile, even if it can be fabulous, even if it can be so incredibly passionate and wonderful you can't even catch your breath, but the thing you want to realize is you're paying a high price. So you've got to learn the 6-part conversation. You really must.
That would really be helpful, make it wonderful.
Yeah.
Now, what about the visionary people? They say that they are really the most difficult partners because they really need so much space. Is there any way that they can make that relationship work?
Well, it's actually, I'm the one who says that they're the most difficult because nobody has this realization except me, it seems, that somebody's all about freedom and all about autonomy and all about going off into nature. How are you going to get them to stay home? How are you going to get them to go to a PTA meeting? How are you going to get them to go to your child's recital? How are you going to get them to hold down a job Monday to Friday every single week? Well, there are some people who are like surfing at 5:30 in the morning. You know, they're happy to go to sleep at 4:30, you know, at 8 o'clock, and then they wake up at 4:30, and then they go to the beach and they surf for an hour or so, and then they take a shower and they get dressed and they go to work. But that's a very small percentage. Because if you think of all those people who we call pejoratively, we call them surf bums or beach bums or ski bums or whatever, most of those people aren't able to hold down a steady job because they are upper right brain people and they want freedom and then they also want a thrill. So it's the thrill, because skiing and surfing are really thrilling. So if you have a choice, you don't want to pick that person, and you always have a choice. Always.
Be aware. Now, do we actually have stay the same as we work on ourselves and evolve over time, or do our preferences for romance actually change?
Yeah, we absolutely evolve. Even if you're doing nothing and you devolve, it's still a change. So if you're not working on your brain, unfortunately, it will become less capable of supporting you. You'll find it hard to remember names. That's the first step. And you have a choice. You can start taking supplements and get all of it back or not. So it's very, very important to realize that your brain is going to be changing. If it's going to change the way you want it to change, it's because you're working on it. If it's going to change in a way that you don't want, it's because you're not doing the work on it and you're not taking supplements either. So be careful.